If there's one Bitcoin chart that you need right now in this cycle, it's probably going to be this one, and here's why. We've seen a break of the macro downtrend, and we're now seeing a macro uptrend, a new one going into the halving, and we've seen this so many times before. So we're going to be talking about this chart in a lot more detail in today's video. So subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in the future. Like this video if you enjoy content like this going forward, and let's dive right into it. Macro downtrend. That always signifies at least a year-long bear market downtrend. Then we break beyond this macro downtrend into a new macro uptrend, and you can see here, 2016 re-accumulation period. Does it look a bit similar to the re-accumulation period we saw in 2023? Really interesting to see those similarities around the halving, pre-halving retrace tends to occur. Could we see that occur closer to April as well? But in 2019, we saw a break and then a pullback for multiple months, and then that March 2020 crash before reversing into that uptrend. So if we look at history, 2016, the halving year, because of course 2015 is when we broke out here, but then we transitioned into the halving year, reaccumulation going into the halving year, and then breakout, pre-halving retrace, and then rallying to new all-time highs for multiple months. So you can see that going into the halving, we see a lot of upside volatility, downside volatility, pre-halving retraces, but it's after the halving where things are very simple. We see parabolic price action to new all-time highs, and that's going to be the case going forward. So we know that the macro downtrend is over. The macro uptrend, the new one, is in progress. We could see some sort of pulling back. Could we see some sort of pulling back on the way to the halving? Could we see another reaccumulation period occur? Could we see another pre-halving retrace occur like we've seen in the past? These are all possibilities going into the halving, but after the halving, it's very simple. Post-halving, parabolic, rallying to new all-time highs, which is what we are going to be now transitioning into this chart. We're going to be transitioning into this chart because after the halving, we tend to see a bull market of around 518 days. That's the case after the 2016 halving. After the 2020 halving, we saw 546 days. So it comes down to a period of just over 500 days after the halving where we see a new all-time high for Bitcoin and a bull market peak for Bitcoin. So if this were to be the case once again, mid-September 2025 or mid-October 2025 is where we'd see that bull market peak occur. And we need to understand also that it's not just about a new all-time high forming, because we saw a new all-time high develop many times in this cycle. We're talking about a bull market peak taking place, and it could occur in late 2025, which is, as you'll note, the beginning of a new 4-year cycle. And a new 4-year cycle tends to begin in 2021, or at least this is 2021, right? In also 2017 and 2025. So that's every 4 years where we see a bull market peak. And going into that post-halving period, we need to try and position ourselves appropriately. And to position ourselves appropriately is to focus on this pre-halving period. And during this pre-halving period of around still over 100 days, well over 100 days going into the halving, we tend to see still either reaccumulation and the pre-halving rally. We can also see relief rallying, pulling back, of course, black swan event, so we might not see that again, but a pre-halving rally nonetheless. So we'll probably see a pre-halving rally closer to the halving, 2 months before the halving event. Could we see some sort of pulling back? Even in 2016, we saw some pulling back, which was 25% to the downside within this reaccumulation range before we broke out. Pre-halving retrace here as well, and pre-halving retrace could take place going forward. But this is the chart to really focus on, because the post-halving period, if we just look at this post-halving period from 2020, starting from 2020, we see reaccumulation here, a breakout from the reaccumulation period, reaccumulation here as well, and then a rally a few weeks of dipping before another rally, and then we saw that corrective period take place during that distribution range. But generally speaking, when you focus on this 500-day period of after the halving, pre-halving retrace, and then weeks of dipping, upside, weeks of dipping, multiple weeks of upside dipping, and that's just how it's going to be for the remainder of the post-halving period. 500 days, over 500 days. So we could see some sort of reaccumulation in this post-halving period that could last several weeks, maybe even multiple months, and we could see some sort of sideways action, downside volatility, upside volatility, but that would be the last opportunity before we finally hone in and zoom in onto the green, most parabolic price action in the post-halving period, which will have a few dips on the way up. But knowing that these are dips, we'll know that they're dips because we will only start selling 500 days after the halving. 500 days after the halving is typically when we see a bull market peak. So when we see dips at around this point, for instance, then that's going to be a dip. That's a buy the dip opportunity on a retrace. If we see a dip here and a dip here and a dip here, those are going to be opportunities for reaccumulation before we finally peak. And the closer we get to the latter stages of 2025, this is when we should be really starting to slowly dollar cost average out of the market, taking profit, because that's the post-halving parabolic phase, which also leads us to that final blow off top moment. And we don't want to give all our gains back to the market, because you can see how quickly those gains can dissipate quite quickly if we don't time the market correctly. So 500 days after the halving, then we see a year-long, at least, bear market take place. And it would be a shame to really ride this parabolic uptrend and not manage to make the most of that bull trend and get caught on this multiple month, year-long at least, bear market, which of course we've transitioned out of successfully and now are in the very beginnings of this new bull market for Bitcoin. Lots to look forward to going into the post-halving period. We'll have over 500 days to enjoy parabolic price action towards the upside after April 2024. In the meantime, however, how can we maximize our opportunity and join the train, the upside that we're currently seeing here? Any pullback during this pre-halving period is going to be the very last bargain buying opportunity for Bitcoin. We've only seen very few bargain buying opportunities for Bitcoin in this pre-halving period. Reaccumulation sideways ranges or even entire crashes. We might not get a massive crash like we did in 2019. Maybe we do get some sort of reaccumulation at highs. And a 20% retrace within that reaccumulation period could occur. Any deeper retrace, however, during this period is that time to really make the most of, because it's this deeper retrace that's going to be one of the last moments for reaccumulation. This pre-halving retrace also one of the last moments for reaccumulation as well before we really take off, and then that reaccumulation period straight after the halving. Those are the three checkpoints that lie ahead that we really need to make the most of and take advantage to properly position ourselves for that parabolic uptrend that's probably going to end 500 days after the halving, closer to the end of 2025, mid-September to mid-October. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in the future. Like this video if you enjoyed this video, and check out the top right hand corner video for more. I'll speak to you in the next one.